Hello, I'm a VHF Rover and I participate in the ARRL VHF contest. The next one's they're in January, June, and September of each year, and it's a lot of fun. I personally pick out different places or different parks that I've never gone to, and I make those my destinations. And I go out to the parks with this on top of my car and operate and try to make as many VHF contacts as I can. I don't try to win the contest. I just try to do better than I did the previous time. And I also try to see a place I've never seen before, and I give myself a reason to go there. So here we go. What are we looking at? This is a Par Electronics 6-meter loop. This is a M squared 2-meter horizontal Yagi. This is a 1.25 meter from M square. This is a 23 centimeter from M square. And up front is a M squared 440 antenna. The way I put this together is that let me move around here where I'm not looking straight into the garage light. I used a piece of 1¼ inch steel conduit, electrical conduit, as my mast, which goes down into my Yaesu rotor down here. And I used, believe it or not, stainless steel pipe clamps. I had to drill out these holes on this plate a little bit, but I used stainless steel pipe clamps on each one of these antennas to mount them to the mast. Now, originally I used the saddle clamps that came with them, and those deformed this mast. It's not thick-walled enough to take the force of those clamps. And by deforming it, I was then unable to raise the other secret weapon in here. If I can get my little pipe, there we go. The other secret weapon is that inside of here, I have a mast, right? This is a carbon fiber mast. And I've got so I've got this 1, 2, 3, 4 sections of this carbon fiber mast. It's from DX Engineering. It's a 33-foot mast. So I've got 4 of the, I think, 6 sections. So I get it another like 25 feet up. And of course, that's sitting on top of this car, which is about 5 feet off the ground. So that 6-meter antenna, I'm able to get about 30 feet up in the air. What else? Down here we have the Yaesu rotor and this super strut, which is the brand name, I believe. This is just the electrical conduit, not conduit, but it's the electrical framing stuff that contractors use for connecting their conduit to buildings and things like that. And this is a zinc plated or galvanized steel. It's done well. It's been out in the weather a few times and it hasn't corroded yet. And I've seen it used out in gardens and places for long periods of time. So it seems like it's pretty durable. One thing I did have to do is use hardened steel washers. So this washer right here is it's like a grade 5 steel washer so that it won't pull through the hole. And the obvious reason to use this super strut, not only for its strength, but it's also for how strong it is. It's really lightweight. Of course, having all these holes in it reduces the weight quite a bit. But it's very strong. It's a little bit flexible, but not much. If you keep it on short runs, it doesn't seem to deform much. And the holes, having these holes is quite helpful because they're at exact distances and they're exact widths. And so it it helped me to be able to put this together fairly quickly because all the holes already existed. All I had to do was make some measurements and make it fit. So this is the front, and here's where I U-bolt it onto the car, onto one of the roof racks, and then another U-bolt goes back here. You're looking at this probably also. This is a vertical base. It's a base station vertical. It's the mount for it, and so it goes essentially right through here, and I tape it. Well, I tether it up there at that end when I'm driving, but when I'm stationary and before I start using the rotor, I'll stand this up to make vertical FM contacts on the North American simplex frequencies. What else? Of course, the rotor, the mast bearing. Okay, so that's the next one. That is a Yaesu GS050 mast bearing, and the reason I chose that one is because it has these really nice this really nice connection for guy wires or ropes, I think was the intended purpose. But I used it to then use this piece of 3/4 inch conduit to hold it in place. So I've got 4 of those, obviously. And probably could have gotten away with 3, but that would have been a little weird for the front side. Anyway, there you go. Just kind of giving you a good look. This is the back. That's the front. And there it is. Now, as for the car, one thing I learned is that every roof rack is different. And before I got started, I checked the owner's manual for my car to see how much weight I can put on the roof rack. And if I remember correctly, the owner's manual said up to 300 pounds, which surprised me. So I found this roof rack. It's a no-name brand on Amazon, and I believe it was also rated for that much weight. And I can tell you that I've stood on it, and I'm about 220 or 230, and it hasn't bent. So it lives up to its name, or it lives up to its specs. The kind of concerning part is making sure that these are on tight, right? These have got to be on good and tight, but not too tight. You don't want them to come loose when you slam on the brakes. And the other concern I had was, knowing that if I have to make a sudden stop, all of the weight is going to be pushing down on this front one. Plus all the force of my momentum is going to be pushing down on that. I'm assuming the engineers had that in their mind when they made those specs. Anyhow, so I put this on a scale as it is with the coax and the antennas and the super strut. All of this kit, I put it on a scale and it was 70 pounds. So doing good there. My other thought with this is that when I'm not doing VHF contests, I'm going to pull this mast out and put in another mast, which will have the other side, the elevation rotor mounted to it. Because this conduit, this 1 1/4 inch steel conduit, is fairly inexpensive. So I can pull this out, set it in the garage, put in another piece of conduit mast, and put the other rotor, just leave the other rotor attached to the other mast, and then kind of like Legos, swap one out and put the other one in, and within an hour or less, I'll have a satellite station. And I was thinking I would set this in the backyard and work satellites when I'm not doing VHF rovering. And oh yes, the other thing is the shelf that goes in the front seat. Here, where this PVC pipe is, the gray PVC pipe, that is the part that sits in the seat. And of course, this side is the part that sits in the floorboard. And that's why it's lopsided like it is. It's so that, you know, one side can be in the seat. The seat practically touches the bottom of this. I made it just tall enough that it doesn't block my view of my side mirror, so I can still see that without any obstruction. The black stuff here, let me get a little closer. This is that toolbox drawer liner. So that is, I put that on there to keep things from falling through, because this is just this one of those wire racks. And it also keeps it from making a lot of noise. It's a great noise dampener. Then I have this metal screen on here so that anything I set on top of this doesn't just, you know, push this right through these holes. It distributes the weight. And then I have the straps on each shelf. I have a strap, and the purpose of the strap is so that when I put the radios on, I run the strap through the handles of the radios, and I run it over the radios and then through the straps, and I strap the radios to the shelf. So, and then I also run a strap through underneath the seat, around the seat rails where it bolts into the floor. I have a couple of little loop straps that go around that rail on the floor and come up and poke through the seat. I'll show that to you. That's what these are. Okay. These, well, you probably can't see it. They go underneath that seat rail. And they're a loop, so I took it through itself and then pulled it up through the seat. And so then I run straps around each shelf and through that loop that I just showed to you that's in the seat, so that the shelves, if I have to emergency brake, the shelves aren't going to come up, right? Because what holds the shelves in place is force pushing down. So I was afraid that with all this weight on here, if I had to slam on the brakes and everything went up, it might just completely come apart. So I put a strap around each one of these shelves through the seat to hold it all together. So I have straps around each shelf and around all the radio equipment, and straps around the shelves themselves. And then of course I have these two power switches for DC, obviously. One of them is to turn off and turn on my DC to AC inverter, because it makes a lot of noise on 6 meters. So I use it to charge up the laptops when I'm driving between locations. And then when I arrive there, I turn that AC to DC inverter off. I'll also turn it on, turn the rotator, and then turn it back off again. The other one is just a cutoff of the batteries themselves. So I can turn this other one and it shuts everything off. And then on this side, we have the power strip. And that's kind of it. There's a front view of the rack if you want to see that. And kind of a better look at what I did here. It's not that complicated. Probably the hardest thing was trying to get that mast bearing level. And it's really hard if that thing flexes just a little bit. You think you've got it level, and then it flexes and it's not level again. But I got it as close as I could. And it's good enough for a VHF contest. So there's, again, the roof rack. And also have another shelf here in the back seat. And I think that's it. This is where I normally sitting here would be a transverter that converts from 200, well, it converts from 10 meters to 222 megahertz. Then down there is the inverter that converts from DC to AC. That's it. Have fun, y'all. Be safe.